Hello, third grade Virtual Academy classes. This week in art, we are going to be talking about organic and geometric forms. So a form is a shape that has turned 3D. Let's take a look at what this means. So first we're going to look at geometric forms. So a geometric form is simple, like a cube, a cylinder, a pyramid, a sphere, other things like that that you know the names of. So let's take a look at some. So this top picture is probably the best example of geometric forms. We have a sphere, we have a cone, we have a cube, which is actually a rectangular prism because it looks like it's a little longer. We have a cylinder, pyramid, and then I'm actually not sure what this one is called. Down here we have some of these pyramid shapes, but they're arranged in a way that creates a very dynamic work of art. And then over here we have things like a sphere and a cylinder that are slightly changed because they are actual objects, and so they create an actual picture. There are also organic forms. I'm sorry that my face bubble is blocking some of this. So organic forms are found in nature. This is kind of like the difference between geometric and organic shapes, where geometric shapes are named and organic shapes are the ones you find in nature. So they're free-flowing and unpredictable. And let's just take a look at some examples of organic forms so you can see what exactly we're talking about. This is in Chicago. It is called by many of the locals the bean because it looks a little like a bean, but it's a gigantic organic sculpture. Over here we also have some smaller sculptures, but again, you can see these are organic shapes. There's no exact cones or spheres or anything else like that. So these are just organic forms. So we are going to practice turning a geometric shape into a geometric form by using shading. So shading is just where we're going to take a pencil or a color pencil or a crayon, and we're going to either press really hard to get some really dark shades or really lightly to get some really light shades. So here's another example of a still life using geometric forms to create art. So again, you can change the darkness or lightness by changing how hard you're pressing. Here are some of the things that you can use, and again, my picture is blocking these, but you can use a crayon, a color pencil, or most of us are going to use a regular pencil. Here is the worksheet that we're going to be using, and I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to use this. If you don't have a printer and you are not able to print this out, you can either just try to freehand draw these forms or shapes onto a paper, or if you're very, very careful, you can open up the one that is meant for printing. You can zoom in as much or as little as you want, and you can actually put your paper on the computer screen and trace through it. Be very careful when you do this, because if you press really hard with a pencil, you may damage the screen of the Chromebook. So be very careful, trace them very lightly, but you can trace these onto another paper. It is important, just like any other art, that we don't do this on lined notebook paper. You need to do this on a paper that has no lines. Something like computer paper would be the best. And remember, at the end of the day, this is just practice. We will be doing a larger project with organic forms in another week, but for this week, we are just practicing. So let's see what it looks like. So here is my Shading 3D Forms worksheet, and I got paint all over my table this weekend doing some arts and crafts, so just try to ignore that. So Shading 3D Forms, what we have here is we have a shade scale for dark to light. So we're going to try to use, I'm going to use a regular pencil. You can use something else if you need to, but I'm going to try to make the boxes down here match the boxes up there. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to start on the dark box and press really, 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 really hard. Basically as hard as I can get that pencil to color. Trying not to shake the camera, but it is a little tricky when everything is attached. So you can see that my pencil is more of a gray than a black, but that's okay. I'm getting it as dark as I can get it by pressing as hard as I can and filling that whole box in as hard as I can. So now we're going to go to the next box, and I'm going to just press a little bit lighter. It won't be a huge change, but it should be noticeably lighter. So there's that one. Now for the next one, I'm going to press even lighter. And if it comes out a little too dark, you can always go back and just erase it a little bit. I think I'm doing okay though. Now on this one, I'm going to barely press. Try to get it really light. You can see I'm not being super careful about staying in the lines, but that's okay. And on this one, I mean, I'm going to hold the pencil way at the back, and I'm going to barely leave a mark. And then the last box is actually just gonna stay white. So now I have a white to black, or as close as I can get it to white to black scale. So now let's move down here and let's shade some of these shapes to look like forms. So I'm actually gonna start on the right because I think that this one's the easiest. We have a dark side and a light side. So I'm gonna just copy what's going on up here. So for this one, I'm just gonna turn the right side really dark. And you could just leave the left side blank, or if you wanted to, you could just give it a little something. And there we go, we have a dark side and a light side. On this one, we have 3 sides to deal with, so we're gonna do a dark, medium, light. So on the dark side, I'm gonna press as hard as I can. On the medium side, I'm just gonna press medium. And then on the front side, I will just leave it white. Circles are a little bit more complicated, or spheres, I should say. And so for the sphere, we actually have to start at the bottom. We're gonna pretend like the light source is somewhere over here, and that means that the whole outside of this would be shaded the darkest. So I'm gonna take my pencil and see if I can color this bottom ring dark, dark as I can get it, super dark. I'm gonna color the next ring by just pressing a little lighter. So kind of like we did up at the top with our grayscale. I'm gonna color this one just a little bit lighter. Same thing for the next ring. I'm gonna color it even lighter. I do always try to go in a circular pattern, but sometimes it is a little easier to do it this way. And then for the highlight right here, I can just leave it, or if I think that looks a little too white, just barely put any color in there. So it should look like it's getting progressively darker as we go around. Sometimes I go through at the end and I kind of make it look just a little bit smoother. So that's what I'm doing now, is I'm trying to make my shading look just a little bit smoother by fixing it up a little bit. And I think that looks better already. Here we go. So now that's a much more shaded sphere. On our cone, we're gonna make it, the bottom is gonna be the darkest possible. And then we're going to do shading from the left to the right. So just like we did up at the top, we're gonna do shading left to right. This is gonna be as dark as I can get it. Next one's gonna be a little bit lighter. Next one's a little lighter still. Next one I'm barely pressing. And the next one I can just leave. And again, when I'm done, sometimes I go back and I make my shading look a little bit smoother, just like that. So see if you can get some shading done to make your shapes look a little bit more like actual 3D forms. And remember, this week is just practice, so don't stress about it if you're having a hard time.